are back home sitting in front of the fire with our knitting. This week we talk about the new and shiny hardware from Microsoft, the Surface laptop. We discuss its place in the range of Surface devices and how the new Windows 10s works as well. Has the latest Google phishing debacle hurt their brand? And how did it get so bad? And then finally, we return to something we know nothing about. This episode brought to you from Joel's mom's basement.
And yet again, you're listening to The Dane of the Pain, the show that measures holographic entanglement entropy on a quantum simulator. Good evening, Joel. I think I'll just start out today and say that it is now winter in Australia. Oh my God, it's getting cold. We had -1 the other day, so take that, you Alaskan fool.
-1. That's in the. So that would be 31. That would be right around freezing, right? So is it? Yeah, so do you freezing. Skate on your cement pond when it's cold out? Do you put an ice rink out?
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. No, we don't.
I love regaling. We used to they used to in this town. So there was a while in the 70s and 80s where they thought they should have tennis courts, and so. What they would do, though, in the winter is they would flood the tennis courts with water so people could ice skate on the tennis courts, yes. And to be frank, I think more people ice skated on the tennis courts than actually played tennis, but I'm sorry. I don't know why that occurred to me.
Well, if that works. We do have a tennis court, so I guess I could technically fill it with... No, I won't go there. No, I have an interesting. Is it interesting? Yeah, let's go with interesting. There's a story this week because there was a survey that came out of airlines in Australia, and we don't have many airlines. I think it was actually more Asia Pacific, but anyway, it then revealed that the airline called Jetstar, which is a low budget airline. Was voted the worst airline in this survey, or whatever it was. And there was someone that first posted it on Facebook and lots of comments about, yeah, that seems fair. Essentially, not a single person was defending him, right? And that's when you know we got a problem. And then the really, really beautiful thing was that I just went to Tassie and I flew on this airline, Jetstar. So, 2 days before this thing comes out, I need to go.
Where did you go?
Yeah.
You went to?
I went to Tassie, to Tasmania.
Do people actually call it Tassie, or is that just you trying to hoodwink me?
No, they call it Tassie, because it's just to on a side note here, Australian culture is about abbreviation. So we have a really large stadium in the centre of Melbourne called the Melbourne Cricket Ground, and it holds 90,000 people. It's really large. But the locals, it's just called the MCG because it's shorter. But now, because it's been the MCG for 100 years, they now shorten that, so it's just the G. That's how lazy Australians are. So the Melbourne Cricket Ground is now just the G.
So you went to.
So everything is shortened.
So you went to Tassie. God,
I went to Tassie.
It sounds stupid when I say it. Sorry.
Yeah, it does. So shut
but
up.
Like most things. Go ahead.
And then I was going to Launceston, and there's two major cities, I guess, on the island. So it's south of Australia. It's the southernmost state, and the general joke is that you travel. It takes 1 hour to fly there, and you go 30 years back in time, because everything just stands still, right? It's just they're a bit behind, and they know it.
It's an island.
And they don't mind.
Right?
It's an island, yeah. So I like it because it's small. It's 1.5 times the size of Denmark, which you can drive to things in less than say a day, and I went there for work. There was a company that I'm currently working with, and they have a department down there. So I went down to look at all the stuff they're doing and talk to the teams and whatnot. But coming back to the story of Jetstar, so I had the worst expectations, let's say. It doesn't help that they fly out of Terminal 4 in Melbourne, which is, I put it on Twitter, it is the cesspool of Melbourne Airport. It's the newest terminal, and they have, they have not spent money on anything. So just to get to the gates, you got to walk down this very long hall, or whatever it is, building. And there's no travelators, there's no bathrooms, there's no nothing. You just got to walk this sort of walk of shame down to these budget airlines, right? And it's just everything's just a little bit, bit like, oh, we didn't need to do that. Oh, let's just not build this bit. No, let's save that here. And everything is just budget, right? And I get on the plane, no problem. Got a seat, it's a full plane, because there's not that many planes going to Tassie. And I get there in time, I landed at 11:30. At 2:00 p.m., I receive a text message with my boarding pass for that flight. So they didn't. They didn't disappoint.
That's pretty funny.
It was fantastic. Luckily, I had a printout of it, so but I just went, nah, really.
But that you are traveling in a steel tube at 30,000 feet at 400 or 500 miles an hour.
Yeah.
We gripe about things, but it's pretty amazing.
Oh, it is, and to be honest, an hour flight, it doesn't really matter, right? I was quite happy to go on Jetstar. That's fine. But I just thought it was funny that they still screwed something up.
I think a lot of those notifications in traveling. So when you get, in particular, when you get gate changes, usually my experience is that the mobile apps they're lagging behind. And in particular, when you're flying commuter planes in the States or these regional carriers, they change the gates like, I think it's a game to see if make people exercise or something, but the alerts never keep up. But they don't. I've never had an airline alert me via SMS. It's always either through an app.
No. This is this is the boarding pass.
Yeah.
This is to get on the plane.
Well, no, that as well.
Yeah. So you can elect to have it sent to you as an SMS, which is a link, and it opens up, and there's your boarding pass.
Yeah.
But that's not helpful when you get it 2.5 hours after you land.
Tasmania sounds wonderful. I'm glad I bet you they're happy that you came, and they're even happier that you left.
Oh yeah, that's why they only gave me 2 days. The visa to get in was, So, speaking of gates, it's easy in Launceston Airport because there's 4 gates, and 2 of them are rarely used. So it's not hard to find a gate.
You're not going to get lost there. Well, what should we talk about this week?
Anyway. Well, that was my week of fun and games. So another thing that happened this week was that Microsoft had an event. I think they called it the Education event. Is that right? Something like that. And they did release new hardware, and they came up with this Surface laptop. I'm sure you saw that as well,
sure.
Joel. And I've seen a couple of sort of hands-on first impression type videos of it, and it looks kind of neat. It's not a cheap device, but it's cheaper than the Surface Book, which is the high-end device. And it has, what I thought was really cool, it has this leather, well, it's not leather, Alcantara or suede kind of surface on it.
Yeah, it's kind of a brush suede. I don't know what you want to call it. But it's easier. It's not as hard on your hands. Yeah. Well, so if you rest your wrists on it, and I have a Surface Book, so when I rest my wrists, if I have it flat on my lap, my wrists tend to hit right on the edge of the base of the device, which for a long period of time can get uncomfortable. And I think that it's just probably pretty easy to type on it, and not having had one, I don't know this, but I'm presupposing that it would be easier or less stressful to type on it. One of the things that I thought was really cool about it, and I don't know if you saw this, but the speakers are actually underneath the keyboard.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which, I mean, that was like, technically, I'm like, how the hell do they do that? I'm like, it's just as a piece of technology or in engineering, it's a marvel.
I know, and it's apparently they invented a new membrane that sits under the keys, which is like dust proof but not soundproof or something like it doesn't inhibit the sound waves or something, like quite clever. For no apparent reason really, because I'm sure people would have been happy to have the speakers on the side or something, you know.
Yeah, and it's an interesting. So, I've seen lots of conjecture about this, and I've kind of kept my mouth shut. I did share Anne's, my wife's feedback, because she's actually a teacher. Now, granted, she teaches in K1, but the use case for her, and the first thing she asked after she kind of one eyebrow went up, so she liked it. She said, "Well, would I be able to use, my overhead, and I can't remember what the device is called, and does it have an HDMI out port, or would I need to get an adapter for it?" So she immediately went to all of the things that she would need for it to work with in her existing classroom. And so that's one of my sort of organic concerns about it, is at least in that setting, is how it works with older equipment, because to be frank, most of the institutions are not dealing with bleeding edge equipment. But then other people made the point that this is clearly a device for people who are in secondary education in college. This is aimed at the 18 to 24-year-old demographic. But if you look at this sort of locked store in Windows 10, unable to change their browser unless you update to purchase the Windows 10 license.
Yeah, right. Hang on, before you get too far ahead of yourself here.
Go ahead.
So I think we got to separate the two. So there's the hardware, which is the Surface laptop, which is a confusing name, I think, but anyway. I think it's important that the Surface laptop is kind of like the showpiece for a new version of Windows 10, which is Windows 10 S. And I think student, is it S for student probably?
There's been
something?
a debate about
Maybe
that
simple
too.
sandbox.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it can be whatever you want it to be. And I think that the hardware is showcasing the new OS or the new version of OS, but they're very aware that this laptop or this version of Windows with this laptop is really, really good for primary education. So, K1 to 6 or whatever it might be. So up to about 10 years old. And they're competing directly with the Chrome OS. Because apparently there are laptops or devices now that are being launched at $189 with Windows 10 S on it, which is very cheap. And the reason they're doing that is that they can lock it down. And there was some questions around, well, hang on, you already tried doing this with Windows RT what was that, 5 years ago? And that was just a disaster. And the difference is that Windows RT was for ARM devices, so the ARM architecture, and they were low power, they were slow, the user experience for Windows 8 at the time was really, really quite crap. Whereas now with Windows 10S, it's still Intel architecture. It's still the same CPUs and computers you use. And they're saying, well, hang on, if you want to use it for secondary, if you want to install Photoshop on it, if you want to install all these apps that aren't Windows Store, because Windows 10S, as you said, sandbox everything to Windows 10 Store apps, well, you can upgrade to Windows 10 Pro for free. Or if you're not on a Surface laptop, you can upgrade it for $49. So there is this path of saying, hey, we acknowledge that this might not work for everybody, but if you are in the Chrome OS market bracket or, that sort of sector that needs that, then we got it. This is the device for you. So I think that's they're trying to bridge that gap that RT just never did.
Well, so there's a few things. These are the things about it that I think, so we had talked in the past, or I had anyways, exhaustively about how it's annoying when they bring out a product for a specific market, and then everybody around the world gets to look at country X with the latest and greatest thing. My understanding is this is being released in 30 markets initially. So, that's one thing that I think is good about it. One of the questions I had for you is, in the States, they have a discount for educators. And so the price for an entry-level device would be under $800 potentially, with the educator discount or student discount. And I'm assuming that if you were buying in bulk as an institution, you get a better price. But do you have that same discount in, say, the Windows Store in Australia?
I don't know. I know there are discounts for students in universities for software, so like Office 365, the Office Home Edition, all that stuff, or Student Edition, sorry, Home and Student. That used to be there. I don't know if it's there anymore. To be honest, I've actually been looking at buying the Adobe, is it CS? I think Creative Suite, as an educator, because apparently because I teach workshops and do Pluralsight courses, I qualify as an educator. So I should look into that in Australia as well for the Windows Store or the Microsoft Store.
Well, I don't know. I think that was one thing that I didn't hear repeated, at least through any of the sites or people that I saw following the event. The pictures of the device were leaked evidently the evening before. Some people lamented that. But I gotta say, so this is, there were rumors that this was happening, but this is a leap, technically, engineering wise, a leap ahead of the Surface Book. It's thinner, it's lighter, it's the thinnest touchscreen. And the touchscreen is an interesting thing. That is something that my wife has said that she hates about Chromebooks, because her kids in her class, they've got, I think, 4 of them they share for very specific things. They are constantly touching the screen, but it doesn't do anything.
So the Chromebook doesn't have touchscreen?
The ones that they have do not have touchscreens. And I'm not sure if there
right.
might be older devices. I don't know what models they are. All I know is I get to hear about what a piece of, and she ends up using her Surface a lot in the classroom for one-on-one with kids for certain things, for some testing, because they can touch the screen. But obviously she's one teacher in one classroom, with one use case. So I wouldn't, sort of depend on that for a broader opinion. I don't know. I think the passion is infectious, and I think that was my other observation I just made online, was that, technically, there is no other company in the world that is creating as interesting hardware as Microsoft. I don't think, and I think that's an argument.
No, I'm just saying I don't think this particular device is that interesting. I think it's filling a needed gap. It's a nice device as far as I can tell, but as you said, it's very light. I just looked at it here. It's 1.25 kilos, which is, well, is that, how much is the Surface Book? Do you know? It's a couple of kilos, isn't it?
I don't know off the top of my head. No, it's heavier.
All right. Yeah, so it does have USB 3 and it does have a mini display port. Out of interest, do you know what the speakers are called now?
No.
So this is where the marketing wank factor got their say. It's omnisonic speakers with Dolby Audio Premium.
Omni, as in omnipresent or something like that, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
omnisonic, because you can't see
and
them.
I wasn't really keen on the colors, but as we've discussed before, my notion of design and color is pretty warped. I tend to be pretty stale. I like steel, brushed aluminum, those colors, that anthracite black or whatever you want to call it. I always kind of prefer that.
Anthrax, delicious.
Yeah, it's a good stuff. What are some of the other interesting things? I mean, I don't know. I was kind of fascinated by the hardware, because to me, this is a lagging, right? You're seeing this now. It's a lagging indicator of what they're working on. So this is what they were working on 2 years ago. And I'm curious if that cycle is being pushed up, right? I mean, maybe they started working on it 2 years ago. So that makes me wonder, what do they have in the
Yeah,
bag next?
I don't know. I don't know. But there still are rumors of the Surface phone.
Yeah.
They kind of quiet down a bit, but I don't know. I think there's be some device. I think the next thing is going to be Surface something holographic. There are devices now coming out from Lenovo and from Acer that have been announced. Acer is coming out in June, I think, and Lenovo is coming out mid-August.
Are those VR?
And these will be...
Are they mixed reality or VR?
Say
Are they
again?
mixed reality or VR? Or?
Well, they are. They're mixed reality, but they have this inside-out tracking. So they're not HoloLens where you have a visor that displays things in your real world. They have cameras that record your real world and then display them like a VR type setup. So it is still mixed reality, but it's much cheaper technology than the HoloLens. That's for sure. But I'm getting one. I'm very keen to see what that does.
There's an event, and I'm not trying to move past this topic, but there's an event that they announced on, I think, the 23rd or 26th in Shanghai, for more announcements coming from Microsoft, and some people have speculated that they'll have additional devices. One of the things to think about, with this particular device they announced this week, they didn't really talk about it in other markets. And so people immediately assume it's the U.S. education market. But when you start pressing down on the price, and you're offering basically the same performance, the same quality as a $1,500 device that's now $900, eventually you start getting them down into where they can meet a need in a country that maybe doesn't have as much disposable income. And so I wonder if the announcement or the thing that they're going to have in Shanghai is going to deal with maybe some specific hardware for the Chinese market. I don't know. I expect to be surprised.
I don't know either.
I mean, I think it's just,
I don't know.
It's just it's a bigger market. I mean, it's a bigger market with more opportunities. And why wouldn't they? If I was, some people might not like this, but if I was in charge of Microsoft, I would be making my big announcement in China.
Yeah, probably. Probably. It's that's I'm intrigued. I don't know what they can do.
Neither do I.
So anyway, do you know the other thing that happened this week is that Google got pwned. Well, not quite, but it's still doing the rounds. We're recording now on the 5th of May, or the 4th of May for Joel. And there's this Google phishing scam that's using Google Docs. And apparently the way it works is that you receive an invite from someone usually from a friend if you have any friends, and they'll email you a link to asking you to join or continue the editing process on Google Docs. And this link then grants permissions to a third-party web app, it's a malicious one that's built by these phishing scammer thingy people, and it's been named Google Docs. And what this does is that when you open it and gives it gets access to your emails and address book. And that's bad.
Well, so now I heard that it was not that what happens is that it doesn't have access to your I'm trying to think the way the gentleman described it, but what I heard is that they had it shut down within an hour, and that was limited to 1 million accounts. And I just have heartburn with that because I heard so much about it. I heard about it online. I heard about it from my kids' school. I heard about it at work. And I can't remember the last time that there was an event, if you will, a precipitating event like this, where I heard so much external feedback on, oh my goodness, did you see this? Oh my goodness, did you see this? Maybe that's just our interconnectedness, but it has to be, it seemed to me that it has to be bigger than just 1 million people.
Probably is. I mean, and I'm just looking at the Reddit post here for someone that actually summarized what happens. So it uses the existing Google login system. This email that you receive. It uses the name Google Docs, as I said before. It's only detectable as fake if you happen to click Google Docs whilst granting permission, right? So you can see who's actually built it. It replicates itself then by sending it to all your contacts because you're giving it access to your Google login. It bypasses any two-factor authentication, apparently. Not sure how that is done. Maybe it's because you're on your computer. And then it'll send scam emails to everyone you've ever emailed. Ever. Like, it goes through all of your sent items in Gmail and just goes ballistic. That's bad.
Yeah.
This is... So there's two things in it, is that, yep, someone found a flaw, a vulnerability in the way that Google's auth system works by getting access this easily by someone, they're essentially phishing because they look like Google, they act like Google, they must be a duck. And then you click and then all hell breaks loose. It reminds me of way back when, this would have been, I'm guessing 99, 2000, there was this I love you virus, essentially. Was it a virus? I guess you can call it a virus. But the reason it's called I love you is that you received an email attachment from a colleague or someone that you know, having an attachment to this email saying something around the I love you poem or something that they sent you. And you open this thing and it was some sort of macro virus thing, and then it would just send the same email to everyone on your computer in your address book. And what happened was that email servers and everything just broke down. It just went completely, it just clogged up everything, right? And that was way back when there was no guard against this because it never happened before. And this just feels very much the same.
So what's old is new again. It was, because I'm coming at it from sort of an end user. I don't use Gmail. My kids do. They're required to have an account for school, so I went and checked those to see if they had received anything like that, and they hadn't. But I heard a gentleman going, "Oh, well, I always email, my customers before I send them a link with the document and tell them they're getting it." And the person that was taking questions about this said, "Well, someone who's phishing could very easily send you an email saying, just be aware, I'm sending you an email with a document attached." And that might be more complicated, but I mean, that is how, people think they're being, judicious and smart and taking their time. And the problem is that the deviant mind is going to out imagine you almost every time.
Yeah, I'm just looking up this I love you virus, and it's actually quite interesting. I'll just brief overview, because it used Visual Basic scripting, which was enabled in Outlook at the time by default. So you just click on it and it would run. It replaced all files with extensions JPEG, JPEG, VBS, VBE, JS, JSE, CSS, WSH, SCT, DOC, HTA, MP2, and MP3 with copies of itself. So if you try to open those files, then you would also send this email. It just basically infested your computer to the point of unusable. And I was working at a rather large telco at the time, and that got hit as well, because then as soon as one person opens this, it just went completely out of control. And it cost them millions. Absolutely. It says here estimated it's about $8 billion worth of damage worldwide. Just for some little script. Yeah. So it's not something that should be taken lightly. Now, so this wasn't my point of bringing it up. Like, yes, I'm saying this has kind of been done before, and someone found a vulnerability. My real question was, how does this affect the Google brand and Google Docs? Like, would this mean that you would be less likely to use Google Docs?
Well, I don't, but my kids do a little bit, and
I mean the royal you, not just you.
Yeah. I think that I think that there's not a terrible amount of loyalty, if you will, to Google. I think people there's sort of a compartmentalization when it comes to that, because they're used to using it because of the ease of use, and because it's free. They have a different expectation, and so what I didn't hear today was, Jesus, Google, you did it again. Where technically at work, when we had Gmail accounts at work, it was huge, and we used their calendar. It was a huge pain in the butt. That was one of the first things I did, was getting rid of that, because it was insecure, number one, for our purposes, inappropriate, and we just had constant, spam. We just had so many problems. It was just nuts. So, but as far as the brand goes, I don't know how people view Google as a brand, which is, I think, one of their problems. But I think people more think of Google as a search engine first, and then after that, maybe as Android phones.
Yeah, that's probably fair. YouTube.
Yeah. But there's lots of people that are perfectly happy using, those their Gmail, and that's fine if that works for them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it has a huge impact on the brand, but it's generally, I would say that, apart from Android actually, but Google in general terms have pretty good products. I'm only banging a bit at Android because it's quite unstable and it's not very secure. Because they update it all the time with new features is one thing, but also they just let it be open. This is one of the problems with open source, is that for Android, manufacturers take their own version and fiddle with it and do things, and then you get either malware or bloatware or something extra on Android that you just don't really want. But the docs, I've used the docs quite a few times. They seem very good products. Gmail, I only don't use it because I run my own, not my own, but I have hosted somewhere else my emails. And it's, I don't know, it to me, it doesn't make a big difference. It's interesting because I think we can all learn from it. But I just don't know what impact it actually has.
Well, one of the things that this is one observation I would make, is that we use primarily Windows devices at home, and it's pretty obvious when you're accessing Gmail and Google Docs from a Windows device that it works fairly seamlessly. Very few problems. But if you try to go the other way, right? If you're trying to use, if Anne's trying to use her device at school to access something that is Windows based, or software or something online, or using Google service, it's just the opposite. And I think that is ultimately what will undo Google, because they don't say they're a sandbox. They say they're open source, but in practice, they're constantly looking for ways to limit other options for users of their service, right? So, that's just my opinion. But anyway, we're kind of off the.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah. That's what we do.
Well, and all these back to the emails from Google. From what I understood, all of these, their primary login, all of these, this was actually related to the store apps that originated in the Google Store or an application. It wasn't something that came from a desktop environment into the service, into Gmail. And I may be mischaracterizing that, but that's what I heard. And I did that Reddit.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know if you read anything different in the Reddit column or not.
I didn't really say anything about where it originated from. It was more, what are the symptoms? How do you know you've been affected? And what's actually happening?
Well, I'm really sad that you were in Reddit because Reddit's a horrid, wretched place.
Yep.
I'm just teasing.
Uh,
I can't, and I stopped going to Reddit because it became, we've talked about time sucks, and I had a hard time not letting it become a time suck. So I just don't go.
yeah, I rarely use it either.
Oh.
Sometimes I make it to the first page of the front page, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, Reddit.
now, just to completely change gears, I think this falls in the category of a segment we haven't done for a long time, things we know nothing about, because you found this company. It's called Inentech, INENTEC, Inentech. And, I mean, what got us was that they're using plasmas. Whatever that means, they're using plasmas.
Plasma sounds cool.
So, right there. Exactly. Yeah, right there, they've got the geek factor up, right? But yeah, do you want to just explain what you understood that they're actually doing? Because this is kind of interesting.
Well, so it's what really sort of led me down this path is I have a cousin who he is way smarter than me, and he shares this cool stuff. And he shared this, and I worked in healthcare. In healthcare, you create a lot of dangerous waste, whether it be radiology equipment, human waste, or blood-borne waste, needles and things like that. And what this company is doing is using this proprietary technology to transform different materials into their elemental components. So it breaks it down into things like hydrogen or oxygen or whatever, and then synthesizes it into gas. And primarily it's in industrial uses. So you have a plant that creates waste or has access to waste. It breaks it down and then reuse the energy created, a synthetic gas, to power the plant. And it's also can be done mobily. They actually have trailers that can be brought in on site. And in particular with medical waste, it's really interesting. This is not, obviously this is sort of a fairly new technology and something that's not widely used. I think I think maybe 20 years is the first time they'd done something like this.
Yeah, something like that.
But
that's what it sounds like, 96, 97.
Yeah, so but it's something, what got me, it's like, well, why didn't I know about this? Because I live on an island and we have garbage and waste that we put on a barge. It's processed here and separated, and and it's shipped to Washington State to a landfill. Same with any cars that are wrecked. They get squashed, and once every 12 months or so, a big barge comes up here, and the guy fills up a barge full of all the metal, and they take it out. And it solves, several problems. You take really dangerous waste, and you get rid of it, and you create energy, and you also harvest the portions of the waste that are beneficial. I think, and if I looked through one of these, one of the videos they had, one of the companies was recovering, I think, ammonia or something out of the waste, and they were reusing it in their and it sounds, it is, to some might be boring, but if you think about what the problems that the world faces, to me, this is like the most interesting stuff, and it's certainly very much high tech. I posted a video they put up of the whole process. It's about 10 minutes of the gentleman walking you through this, and it's just sort of mind-blowing. Basically the temperature of the sun.
Yeah, to put it this way, they're converting, waste, rubbish, whatever it might be, to reusable fuels and materials, and they're doing it in a way with synthetic, gases and whatnot that they recycle as well. It's this kind of almost closed system where they just add some steam and some oxygen, and that's about it. And they get, metal out of it, they get glass out of it. they clean the gas back up again, and then they do it all over again. It's really quite clever.
Yeah, well, and I mean that's this is all going on sort of under our noses, if you will, and it's this stuff. I'm sure it's probably gotten on the news and whatever, but this is the stuff of what's his name from Tesla. These are the kind of technologies that well, they could put a hole through the earth if they got out of control, or or potentially save us all from ourselves. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I do, and I bet you there's more of these things out there that are doing similar really cool stuff, but we just don't know about them.
Well, and these are the kind of companies that I see. So I think the barrier between what is sort of the traditional technology companies and other entries is going to industries is going to break down. I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen organically, and it's going to happen because it needs to. That is to say, the only way a company like this is going to get scale is if it has foreign partners and it has access to other markets, and the only way it's going to improve is if it has access to the human capital, or the brains, the people that know the engineering. And where are those people working? Generally speaking, in technology companies.
Tesla.
Yeah, technology companies. So
yeah, that's true.
So I look for companies like this to get bought out, or certainly get the technology bought out. So for those folks, and I like to follow stocks and buy and sell stocks, and this is not one that you can go buy, but these are the kind of ideas that you want to look for, because
similar technologies for sure.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
Inentech, I think that's how you pronounce it. Their website's kind of wonky.
Inentech, I think so.
You can tell they didn't spend.
Yeah, just look up.
They didn't spend the money on the website.
Yeah.
And by the way,
they did not.
I've been
That
through.
probably just means that they have money to do stuff.
Yeah, in Richland, where this at, Richland, Pasco, Kennewick, Eastern Washington. It's not the. It's not. Well, it's not Montana. It's not the prettiest country in the world. Anyways, that I've pissed off everybody in Eastern Washington, but I love Eastern Washington. It's a wonderful place. Spokane is wonderful.
Both of the people that live there.
Colville, Chewelah, all of I love them all.
Just a bit of a side note here for the story we were talking about before. Today is 17 years ago that the I Love You virus thing happened. Computer worm, they call it.
Now that is interesting.
There you go.
You should share that, because I have not heard that. I wonder if that was volitional.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if that was.
I don't know. I meant to do that show 17 years after.
Is that when? Is that Ann and I have been married for 17 years? No, that's not true. But it's been longer than that. The I Love You virus.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Number 2.
A computer worm, I think they call it.
So we'll have a link to that site with the information. People go check it out, and make sure you check out our like our page on Facebook, because if you don't, I don't know, you won't like our page on Facebook. And we do accept donations, because our hardware is old and failing. Lars needs a bigger dish to gather signal where he's out in the middle of the sticks. So donate. And then also, if you have a chance, share our podcast with somebody else. We don't care if you listen on an Apple device or an Apple software. And actually, I think our last episode was the first time we had more people listening on iOS than any other particular device or software. So anyways,
that's true. Yeah, well, we don't mind where you come from. That's fine. So it's, do you know what
as long
time
as
it is, Joe?
as long as they don't like Sweden, then we're fine, right?
No, I've banned everyone from Sweden. They can't listen anyway.
Okay, so it's time for the show to be over.
No, that's incorrect. That's not true. It is time for the joke of the week.
It's the joke of the week. So come along with me. I cannot promise it will be funny, but it's a joke of the week.
So a horse walks into a bar and says, on a right angle triangle with sides x, y, and z, if x and z are perpendicular, which side is opposite the right angle? The barman says, why the long face?
Oh, God.
Yes. Yeah, I amused myself. Lovely.
That's so funny. You know what? I think
one.
that's probably the only one that you've ever done that actually. Yeah. Well, no, I won't be mean.
But it's a joke and a joke. Like it was like an Inception joke. It was
Well, when you started talking, my brain actually went back to word problems in math, and I hated word problems in math. You know, I can English and it's all the other social sciences, but math always befuddled me when I was younger. So that's what calculators. Yeah, that's what calculators are for, right?
Yes, I think we need to leave your befuddled brain alone. And actually, I want to just make one little correction from episode 38 that we did about browsers, so 2 episodes ago.
Oh yeah,
because we accidentally said that that the Opera browser is Norwegian. It is built in Norway. It's owned by Chinese. And the Vivaldi browser, I said there was a take of or the new version of Opera or something. They're not related. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, we had someone, a listener, point that out, and we really appreciate that. We don't intend to mislead people.
Absolutely.
And we do say things that are, well, I don't ever, but sometimes Lars says things that are inaccurate.
We just make it up.
That's right.
No, so thanks for that. And until next time, Joel, you go and chop a tree or something.
Absolutely, with my forehead. Good night, Lars.
See ya. Thank you for listening in on another episode of The Dane and the Pain. We record across the Pacific, across hemispheres, and across time zones. You can find us on www.daneandthepain.com. Our Twitter handle is Dane_Pain, and we are The Dane and the Pain on YouTube and Facebook. We're also on your favorite podcast app, including iTunes, and please join our fan club by clicking the Register Now button on our website to know about upcoming shows and any free stuff we may have to share. See you next time on The Dane and the Pain.